Amsterdam, August, 1602. Outside a canal-side building known as the East India House, a line has formed. Merchants in fur-trimmed coats stand beside dock workers, widows, and household servants. All of them are waiting for the same thing: the chance to buy a piece of paper that promises a share in ships that have not yet been built, sailing toward islands most of them will never see. Among them stands a woman remembered only as Neeltje. She works as a housekeeper. She is not wealthy, but she has saved 100 guilders, roughly a year's wages for someone in her position. And today, for the first time in recorded history, that is enough to make her a part owner of a trading empire. This is money memory. The past is still running. What Neeltje is doing, without knowing it, is starting a habit that will eventually put a fraction of apple or shell into the retirement account of a schoolteacher 4 centuries later. The mechanism has a name today, but the mechanism itself is older than the name, and it began with a subscription book on a table in Amsterdam. For generations, trading ventures had been financed the way a group of friends might fund a single fishing trip: pool the money, share the risk, split the profit, then start over for the next voyage. The Dutch United East India Company, the VOC, is structured differently. It is a joint stock company. It was a fishing trip turned into a standing business. Instead of dissolving after each voyage and paying everyone out, ownership is split once into shares, and those shares keep existing, trip after trip. A share, in practice, is a receipt. It says, whatever this company earns, you are owed your fraction of it, for as long as you hold the paper. And the paper itself can be resold. It is, in effect, a slice of pie that can be handed to a neighbor without either of them ever touching the oven. Roughly 6,400 people buy in during that first subscription, and only a fraction of them are merchants by trade. The rest are tailors, brewers, widows, and housekeepers like Neeltje. A trading empire, for the first time, has thousands of owners who will never set foot on a ship. The same arrangement runs today every time a pension fund buys a fraction of a company that neither the fund manager nor the retiree will ever visit. The paper has changed shape, a line on a screen instead of an entry in a ledger book, but the promise is the same one Neeltje was handed in 1602. There is a catch, and it is the one that separates the VOC from every trading company before it. The charter runs for 21 years. There is no clause letting an investor demand their money back early. Economic historians call this permanent capital. It was planting an orchard instead of buying a basket of apples. The return is slower, but the trees do not need replanting after every harvest. The company itself never has to relaunch. It simply grows. And so, if she holds on, does Neeltje's stake in it. The 1620s and 1630s turn out to be exactly the years the orchard bears fruit. Dividends, once occasional, start arriving every year or two, sometimes in cash, sometimes in cloves. For a woman in Neeltje's position, this is new territory. A servant's income had always come from one place: wages, handed over by whoever employed her. Her 100 guilders now produced a second kind of income, money that arrived without her lifting a finger, the same kind of income a merchant collected from a warehouse he had never set foot in. Between a housekeeper's earnings and a merchant's, there had never been a bridge. Now there was one, and it was made of paper. Not everyone was comfortable holding an orchard they could not walk away from. In the earliest years, before the profits arrived, investors were already asking when the first payout was coming, and some were looking for ways to get their money out before the company chose to pay a single guilder back. The same discomfort sits inside every modern retirement account, where the instruction not to touch the money for decades has not gotten any easier to hear since the first Amsterdam shareholders complained about it. By the middle of the 1700s, the company Neeltje bought into is no longer the open subscription table it once was. Control has drifted into the hands of a small circle of regents, the established merchant families who sit on the board and decide who profits and when. Small shareholders can still hold their paper, but they no longer meaningfully influence how the company is run. In lean years, dividends are sometimes paid out in spices instead of cash, because there is not enough money in the account to cover what the paper had promised. The door that once opened wide enough for a housekeeper has by now narrowed considerably for anyone buying in fresh. The company that once made a housekeeper an owner in the same breath as a merchant now runs largely for the benefit of the people already inside it. It survives another half-century before collapsing under its own debt in 1799. Not because the idea of shared ownership had failed, but because the people managing it had stopped sharing it. The mechanism Neeltje used in 1602 is today the plumbing behind nearly every retirement account, index fund, and trading app. Recent surveys put stock ownership among American adults above 60%, most of it held through funds rather than individual company shares. The subscription table has become an app. The signature has become a tap. The principle that ownership of an economy is not reserved for merchants has not changed. What has occasionally reappeared in echoes across 4 centuries is the second half of Neeltje's story, the moment when the people managing the capital start managing it mainly for each other. So what should you take away from this? First, the idea that ordinary people could own a piece of a global company was not always normal. It had to be invented on a specific table in a specific August. Second, the reward for that ownership was patience, money locked away for years, with the return arriving only for those who held on through the uncertain early stretch. Third, the same structure that opens ownership to everyone is also the structure that can quietly narrow back down to a few, a pattern that has repeated since the first shareholders bought in. 100 guilders, thousands of new owners. A kind of income once reserved for merchants, now running through the hands of a housekeeper, inside a company that would eventually span half the globe and eventually collapse under the weight of the people who forgot who it was built for. Understanding how the door opened does not guarantee it stays open. Money memory. Subscribe so the past stops surprising you.